Good evening, everyone. I will go ahead and call tonight's meeting to order. Thank you to those attending in person tonight and those staying engaged by watching our recording at a later time. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak during community comment, they will need to fill out a speaker form located in the lobby on the table and turn it in to Board Secretary Kim Coven, seated to my left at the end. Comments will take place during the designated community comment portion of our agenda. Before we dive into tonight's agenda, I want to take a moment and introduce those seated at the table with me. To my right, we have Superintendent Degner, Directors Pilcher Hyatt, Eastham Vice President Williams, and to my left, we have Directors Abraham, Clausen, and Finch, as well as Board Secretary Kim Coven. And with that, we will dive into tonight's agenda. First up is our Education Showcase. Superintendent Degner, would you like to introduce our Executive Director from the Foundation?
Yes, so we're excited to have Laura Ebinger here with us tonight to introduce some of the activities the Foundation will sponsor and provide to the district this year, and kind of give her formal introduction to the community as well. She's been making her rounds in a lot of different opportunities in the district, but we were excited to highlight this here this evening. And there's lies about the microphones. They're not better. So you'll have to bear with us about those. They told us it was all good, and I think we're going to get a little cut out of our audio here. So Laura, with that introduction, please go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Matt. All right, we'll see how my microphone does. But I'm Laura Ebinger, and I'm pleased to be the new director for the Foundation. One of the things I realized while I learned more about the relationship between the Foundation and the district was that there's an annual reporting to the community about the work of the Foundation. So I'm pleased to join you all tonight to provide the look at our activities and our expenditures. Another thing I learned quickly here is just how wide of an impact that the Foundation has. And I want to tell you a story about a young man who came into my office about 2 weeks ago. He was a busy college student, and he was coming from out of state. He was driving through Iowa City. He was only going to be here for a few hours, and he was ducking out of having coffee with his mom and her friends to come sit in our office here at the ESC. And I thought, what would possess a 21-year-old young man to turn down free food and come hang out at the Foundation office? But he proceeded to just go on and tell us about how much his educational experience was shaped by this district, by the opportunities that the Foundation and our community school district made possible for him. He recounted great memories of Foundation events like School of the Wild, about fine arts experiences he had. He talked about how impressed the kids were at his college that he had not gone to some elite prep school to get the AP classes that he had taken and the unique course offerings, that he had gone to the public school right up the road. He talked about experiences he had that were only possible because of the investment that the community made in education. And then he went on to describe the life-changing impact of the college scholarships he received through the high school, only available to kids in our school district, that are administered through the Foundation. He told us how these scholarships had made such a difference in how he was living, that he had enough money to apply to every medical school he wanted to apply to, and he didn't have to worry about going into debt. And then he went on to tell us how compelled he was to pay it forward, how he was shaped by his public high school experience, how it taught him how to give back, how he then wanted to create a scholarship at his high school to give another student that same kind of support that he received. And you'll bet we were all a little bit misty and had to pass the tissues around after that. He's a really remarkable young man. We know here in this room that this place is special. The Foundation and the community support is a critical component of what makes our district so great. So on to the nitty-gritty, on to our activities. I want to tell you about the activities we have planned this year that will benefit the next group of learners, the future doctors, the engineers, the teachers, artists, and plumbers. The Foundation invests in educational programming with a goal of creating equitable opportunities district-wide. We fund these initiatives through both restricted and unrestricted gifts. In 23-24, the Foundation will cover the entire cost for every kindergartner to participate in storytelling at the Iowa Children's Museum, every first grader to have an acting workshop, every second grader to see ballet at the James Theater, every third grader to experience art at the Stanley, every 4th grader to hear the symphony at the Voxman, every 5th grader to work with Film Scene on an animation workshop, every 5th and 6th grader to attend a week of outdoor learning at School of the Wild at Lake McBride, every 7th grader to experience an improv class, yes, and every 8th grader to attend a theater production at Hancher. No improv people? Okay, you got the yes and, all right. Additionally, K to 3rd students will see a puppet show about voting, and 3rd and 4th and secondary students will have fabulous best-selling visiting authors come right to their schools through our visiting author program. It's quite the lineup, and we can't wait for our students to experience all that we've worked to arrange. Throughout the year, targeted programming supports the Shine Awards, the Silver Salute, support for our absolutely incredible student family advocates, our fabulous Grow Our Own initiative. We also host 2 grant cycles, one that is going on right now as we speak, our Little Idea Hunt in the fall. The Little Idea Hunt is aimed towards meeting the needs at the teacher and classroom level. This year, the requests we're seeing include flexible seating, materials for brand new teachers to the district, manipulatives, calculators, PBIS rewards, and books to update classroom libraries. The Big Idea Hunt is held in the spring. It tackles bigger ideas, bigger budgets, bigger innovation. Last year, the Big Idea Hunt brought our district virtual welding, hydroponic gardening, digital music production, materials for student-built housing, and more. Finally, I want to recap our finances. We're sound. We are in a good place. Last year, our unrestricted revenues, what we call our Excellence Fund, came in just about under $500,000. These dollars come in through events like Dine Out for Education, Run for the Schools, and through our annual and monthly gifts. Our total expenditures came in at about half that, $250,000. That's made up of $180,000 for the combined payroll of our 3 employees, $47,000 in our fundraising expenses, think like mailings and events, and $30,000 in additional administrative costs, that's like our accounting, our audit, our software. So the remaining dollars we raised in unrestricted gifts went right back out the door to the district through our grant cycle. The rest of the money held at the foundation represents our restricted funds. These generally can't be allocated by the foundation elsewhere. They're held at the foundation. They're earmarked for a donor-specific intent. So these might include things like accounts for each individual school, PTO campaigns, club campaigns, and scholarships. Our grant cycles give us an additional opportunity to align those earmarked dollars with the needs that our district employees identify. So that in sum represents our activities and our expenditures that we've got lined up for the foundation this year. It is a gift. It's a gift to connect this incredible community with our amazing schools, and it's one we don't take lightly. We're committed to fulfilling our mission to connect the community with our schools to ensure that every student has extraordinary learning experiences. Thanks for letting me take time to talk to you about how proud I am of this partnership and all the things we can't wait to tackle this year. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Laura. Next on our agenda is community comment. Thank you for your interest in the Iowa City School District and for your willingness to share your comments. You are reminded to give your name, address, and topic on which you plan to speak about. During community comment, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the districts. Speakers who make comments are reminded that they are responsible for their own statements and may be subjected to legal action for those which include hate speech and those that are threatening, harassing, or defamatory in nature. It is expected that speakers will address the board and each other with civility and abide by the stated time limits. All community comment directed at non-agenda items and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting and shall be limited to 4 minutes per speaker. Speaker's time limit will be displayed on the screen above Board Secretary Ms. Colvin. The initial community comment period shall be limited to 1 hour. Remaining community comment, to the extent necessary, shall take place at the end of the meeting. The board will not engage in any discussion during public comment. The role of the board during this time is to listen. And with that, our only speaker for tonight is Joseph Dobrian.
Joseph Dobrian, 1015 Second Avenue. I object to several specific assertions in the resolution that you intend to pass this evening with regard to legislation recently signed by Governor Reynolds, and I object to the resolution in toto. Despite its rather simpering, hand-wringing tone, this proposed resolution is deceptive, demagogic, and destructive in its intent. Quote, during the 2023 legislative session, the Iowa legislature and Governor Reynolds enacted a series of laws that discriminate against LGBTQ students and their families, close quote. That is not true. Quote, the new legislation has forced public school districts across the state to comply with nuanced, harmful, and ambiguous regulations, close quote. This assertion is so broad, vague, and impressionistic that it could not pass muster in a 6th grade composition class, which might be an unreasonable standard in this context. Quote, these laws that target vulnerable youth, close quote. Again, that is not true. Instead, I submit that these laws attempt to protect vulnerable youth from policies and practices enacted by people like you. People who propose to annihilate our civilization by confusing the students in your charge, by encouraging disordered behavior, by removing parents' authority over their own children. I would ask you to point to me the specific language in Senate File 482, Senate File 538, and Senate File 496 that any intellectually honest person of normal discernment would find discriminatory or unreasonable or of a nature to target vulnerable youth. But I won't seek to embarrass you further. According to the Des Moines Register, the new legislation decrees that teachers may not provide, quote, any program, curriculum, test, survey, questionnaire, promotion, or instruction, close quote, about gender identity or sexual orientation in kindergarten through 6th grade. Really? You object to this? You want children not yet 12 years old to discuss these subjects in the classroom? You posit that these subjects are appropriate to a K through 6 curriculum? Quoting the Register again, schools will be required to ask for parental consent if a student requests to use new pronouns. Again, really? You object to this? Do you take the position that you are more responsible for any given child than that child's parents, and that you are justified in regarding those parents as the child's enemies and your inferiors from whom crucial information must be withheld? Obviously, that is what you believe. I suggest that you intend to make each child a ward of a priestly elite, thereby destroying the family, which is the very foundation of American civilization. Our Master said to his disciples, "It is impossible that scandals should not come, but woe to him through whom they come. It were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and he cast into the sea than that he should scandalize one of these little ones." God love you.
That concludes tonight's community comment. With that, I would seek approval for tonight's board agenda. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the agenda for tonight.
Second.
All those in, oh, sorry. Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote.
Online voting is open.
I'm a yes, Kim.
Thank you, Director Williams. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. And before we get to tonight's consent agenda, I want to check with other directors if anyone had questions regarding the bills that were reviewed. Hearing none, we can move on to consent agenda. I do need to pull item number 3, and I would look to other directors to see if there are other items in addition to item 3, the personnel agenda, that they would like to have pulled. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda minus the personnel agenda.
I move that we approve tonight's consent agenda minus item 3, personnel agenda.
Second.
Board Secretary Cohen, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting.
Okay, with that, we go to the one item pulled, the consent agenda, and per Iowa's conflict of interest laws and ICCSD Board Policy 203, I'm abstaining from voting on the personnel agenda due to a conflict of interest that involve immediate family or family by blood or marriage, or situations where myself as an elected official would obtain financial benefit. With that, if there's no question or comment about the personnel agenda, I would open it up to entertain a motion.
I move that we approve tonight's personnel agenda.
Second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with directors Clausen, Eastham, Williams, Finch, Pilcher, Hayek, and Abraham voting yea, and Director Malone abstaining.
Thank you. Next up is our public hearing for the Weber Elementary HVAC replacement project.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the Weber Elementary HVAC replacement project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on August 8th, 2023. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on August 9th, 2023. The district will receive bids on this project at 2:00 p.m. September 6, 2023 at the Facilities Management Conference Center, 1137 South Riverside Drive, Iowa City, Iowa. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in multiple statewide plan rooms and on the Iowa City Community School District website on August 9th, 2023. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public?
Okay, with that, we will close today's public hearing. Next up is our policy review and our policy primers. Is that through Superintendent Degner and Committee Chairperson Finch?
I'm good to go.
There we go.
Okay, so policy primers, we reviewed these at our last board meeting. Basically, there's our primers that came out in June following the 2023 General Assembly adjournment. Some of them include some changes to the bullying and harassment, which we discussed at tonight's P&G meeting, expanded child abuse reporting, changes to mandatory PD, removal of the financial literacy as a graduation requirement. However, we will still offer that class for now. Change in authorization and administration of medications, the opportunity to utilize 5 days or 30 hours a year for remote learning, and removes the requirement to teach HIV and AIDS. However, our district still will, and some updates in language to comply with SF 496, including library instructional materials, student disclosure of identity, parental consent prior to surveys, and how to file a petition to participate in board meetings. I did have one question, if we have changed our website to have that prominently displayed as they have recommended.
Yeah, so there's a few different posting requirements. Director Finch did a nice job of mentioning the one related to the petition process for items to be on the board agenda. There's a few other requirements as well. And so, yes, we've been in the process of making sure that those notification requirements are met and posted. And then, of course, as we transition the website, we'll have them on the new platform as well. But we're making sure that we get all of those things posted and taken care of so that they are displayed. There is a little bit of lack of clarity to know if it needs to be on the front page of the website, if it can be under a tab. But we're doing our best just to make sure that we feel like we've satisfactorily met that requirement.
Great. Were there any questions, comments from other directors? Thank you. Hearing none, we will move on to our discussion item, the equity update and educators rising. Superintendent Degner?
Yeah, and I'll quickly turn it over to Laura if she has any opening comments before I know Carmen's going to carry the majority of the presentation here for us with Educators Rising. I think she's provided you each with a handout there this evening. And with that, we'll just turn it over to Carmen and let her go. Or Laura, sorry. I said I'd start with you and then I changed my mind, I guess.
Before Carmen goes, I just wanted to say, as we were lining up what we're going to put before you for the equity updates, all super important stuff, but I'm super duper excited about this one. So I'm not going to take up any more time, but hopefully we'll get you a good variety of equity updates for this year. But this one is really good.
We're doing it assistance with all the technology right now, so it's a little bit different. Yes. All right, before I begin, I just want to say thank you to the whole board and just to all our foundation and directors here in the program also have been extremely supportive of this program, and it's something I'm extremely passionate about. So I get excited every time I have to talk about our Grow Our Own program, especially for our student to teacher pathway, because it still keeps me back in the classroom and allows me to continue working with our students in different ways. And so this year, I'm extra excited about it only because we can do so much more than we did last year, thanks to the foundation and the donation we received. So it's going to open many more opportunities for our students. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. You should all have the one-pager on your tables. Most of the information I'm going to share on this presentation is on that one-pager, so I'm not going to really read everything on the slide because you will have that information present for you. But the Educators Rising, the mission and vision for Educators Rising is the same nationwide, and so that is what we have for all the affiliates programs for Educators Rising. Is there a way to make this bigger? Everybody's okay seeing it as it is?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So today I'm just going to share briefly where we were from last year, how we wrapped up the year, a little bit of what our plans are for this year, and then what we're thinking of as we move forward to our middle school project for 6-8, and then with our career pathways. So like I said, our mission and vision is the same nationwide, but we really stay true to that mission of Educators Rising, cultivating highly skilled educators. Every school has our four, we have Tate, we have City, we have Liberty, and we have West. They each have school sponsors that work with our students. And these are all teachers that are extremely passionate about teaching and about working with students and guiding our students to become future teachers in our district. Last year we had 25 students district-wide at the 4 schools. Of those 25 students, 4 of them were seniors that are now going on to become teachers, future teachers, who have entered in the world of education. We have 1 student that's at University of Northern Iowa. We have a student at University of Iowa, and 2 students that are starting at Kirkwood to then transition to one of our state schools. And so we're going to be following those students this year. We'll have a coordinator that will support this process this year, who will be contacting our 4 students to make sure we can stay in contact with them throughout their 4 years of college, and then making sure that we can still bring them back into our district as teachers. And our promise stays the same, that if they go through their whole process, they'll be guaranteed a job in the district. And so we're pushing forward this year with the same. Last year, we were only able to do 1 college visit at the University of Iowa, but when I extend a little bit more, we're going to have a lot more opportunities for college visits this year for our students. These are the 4 groups that we had of students last year. There's some students who are missing in this. This was from our kickoff event, but we had other students that came into the group after this event. So we'll have something similar this year to start off the group and get them going with the program this year. What you see on the bottom, Discover Your Potential, is the Educators Rising logo for this year. So last year the logo was There's Power in Teaching, and the logo this year nationwide is Discovering Your Potential. So that's what we're working last year, the students worked with their teachers during their advisory intervention block time. The teachers had lessons that they were able to teach the students once a week, and so they met with them every day, but they taught the lessons for Educators Rising lessons once a week. And the lessons were built around the standards you see up here. And so the teachers broke these standards down throughout the month, and every month there was one focus. And based on that, they had many lessons that they taught under that focus. And so I will show you later on when you look on the paper you have in front of you, on the back it has the lessons and the breakdown of, we'll show you how that's gonna look a little bit further. So for this year, using Zello and Cooter Navigator, those are the two programs we have that pretty much identify students' career pathways. And it really helps us to work with individual students throughout the district. Students begin taking this survey in 8th grade, and then it tells them here are the top 3 career pathways that have been identified for you. Based on your responses to the questions on the survey, it tells us that you have high interest in these places. So the numbers you see here are for the students who have shown number 1 interest in education as a career. So right now we have sent out emails to all the students for these numbers you see, and have sent out an invite with the 1-pager, inviting them to be part of our program. So the teachers in the buildings for the sponsors will follow up with the students. We share the list of the students who, for each of the schools, we share those lists with the teachers, and they'll follow up with the students to continue encouraging them to see if they want to be part of our program. And so once we have identified the students who will be in the program for this year, then we'll have the students registered in that course, and they'll be working with their sponsors throughout the year and going through their lessons. The numbers you see up above, this is how it's broken down by ethnicity. So I won't go too in depth with that because I can't see that far right now. I got this. But once written small, but we can see that we still do have a high number of students, of our diverse students that we're still trying to reach, so we can build our student pool and our diverse teacher pool. And so we're going to be trying our best to make sure we can get as many as those students into our program as possible for this year. Similar to last year, we still have our partnership with Kirkwood Community College. So through the Education Career Academy, the students have 2 options. They can take their classes on campus on the Kirkwood site in Oakdale, and these are 4 classes that are available for them to take in that Career Academy field. Now we're working this year, it won't go into effect this year, more next year, but we're working with Dominic Audia, who is our CT coordinator, to see if we can have some of these courses taught on our campus. So students can either take it at Kirkwood or can then take it on the school campus with us. And so we've identified 3 teachers that right now have their in their CTE program that have a master's in education and can teach all of the EDU courses that we have up here. So we're going to try and incorporate that into our program of studies for students for future years, so they have those availabilities on campus for us. With those 4 courses, students can also then, by the end of their high school career, can graduate and have a certificate to be a paraeducator in our district. So it provides them all the time, all the coursework they need to get their paraeducator certificate for the generalist paraeducator certificate. And then we'll also provide spaces for the students to have job shadowing and internships so they can gain those 10 hours of supervised experience in the K-12 classroom. Well, we have also, in addition for this year, we don't have any teachers right now in our teacher pool that can do our early childhood education courses, but we do offer that virtually for our students, so they can still be at school and take those courses virtually, and then same as above, they can earn their paraeducator certification for early childhood PK through 3. And so the goal is we're working with Heather Stevens and with Jay Beaver to provide some supervised experience too, just to either come in and provide to do some volunteer work. The students can come into some of our elementary classes or also in some of our preschool classrooms and see what that looks like. And so we're going to try and offer that opportunity this year for our students. Our UNI partnership remains the same. We're working with Amira Nash, who's the Associate Director of Partnerships and Programs at the University of Iowa with the Baker Teacher Leader Center. She is the one who works with our Aspiring Educators program through the National Education Association. And so we'll still have that partnership this year. Those aspiring educators will work with our students and come on campus to provide some mentorship, one-on-one mentorship with our students during that class time. And then they'll also be helping us with some of our program events this year and the workshops we'll provide. So as I mentioned, we have that $11,700 one-time donation right now from the foundation. And we'll be working to see how we can get some more financial support for the program to continue the events we want to plan for our students. But that will allow us, in addition to the lessons that you see here, it will allow us to provide more college visits. So these are the colleges we're planning for the students to go see this year. We already have the first two scheduled, and so the students have the University of Iowa State University, University of Iowa have already been scheduled. And then we have some dates in mind for the other universities, so the students can have a chance to see all of them. The way you see it here is where each of those that are by themselves will be individual visits. And then the ones that are combined, we'll try and do like Grinnell, and then on our way to see Drake, we'll stop at Grinnell. So it's combined visits. We will be offering 5 workshops for our students this year in addition to our kickoff event and end of year event. For those 5 workshops, the students will have their theme based, and I was able to get our directors and our exec directors to be the ones to be our keynote speakers and lead some of those. So I will share the dates. They're on the sheet for you. The dates may change if we have any weather issues, but if not, if we can stay true to our dates, you're more than welcome to come and see those events in place. And they will start at 9:30 and they'll go from 9:30 to 9:30 to 3:30. I'm sorry. So we'll wait for students who have to do busing. We'll wait for them to get on campus first, and then we'll leave, and then make sure they're back by 3:30 so they can take the bus when we're participating after school events. But so for each of those dates, the people you see in parentheses will be our keynote speakers for each of those events. And then after that, University of Iowa students and some community members will guide some learning around each of those. But those will be the topics of the day that we'll discuss. And so, like I said, on September 15th, we have our kickoff event. And so Kimberly Fitton, the principal of Northwest Junior High, will be our keynote speaker for that day. And the theme of that day will be defining your why. So students will work with her, defining their why they want to be teachers in our district. And then our end of year event will have some students' presentations involved. And then the dates you see below, the 28th of June into July 1st is our National Educator Rising Conference, and that will be in DC this year. Last year was in Florida. So the student presentations, the students for the national conference, our students present on different topics. For those who compete, they pick a topic, and that's the topic they gain like mastery or proficiency on over the year. So they work throughout the year to really master that topic and their knowledge around it. And then they present at the national conference. Because we are right now the only school in the district or the state of Iowa that has Educators Rising. We don't have schools to compete against, so the students will compete against each other to present on this. But at the kickoff event, the students will pick their topic, and then every student has to pick a topic, and so whatever topic they pick, they will work on that topic throughout the year with their teachers, and then we'll use those topics for presentations. So for example, the children's literature pre-K, the students get to write a book. And then they're the authors of the book and the illustrators. They can partner up with somebody, but they actually write their own book. And then we provide the opportunity for them to publish it too if they want to. So that's something they work on throughout the year. And so, or students who want to do the Exploring Education with Admin Careers, they get to follow an admin in their building for the whole year and learn about what it takes to be an administrator in education and all the ins and outs of the job. And then at the end, they present on what they've learned. And so the end of year event, that's what those student presentations will be about. And so we're trying to do it where it's open to the community members. Board members can come in. We've got Superintendent Eggers, who will be the keynote speaker for that event. And then the students will share their presentations on what they've learned throughout the year. And the students who will be going to the national conference will then identify themselves at that space, and they'll do support for that process. So moving forward, what we're hoping, you can see the numbers of our KNAP survey have identified that these students in this is the number that we have for students in our junior high programs that are also interested in education as a career. So the hope for this year is to reach out to our students at the junior highs this year to start cultivating that interest so that when they do move on to next year as freshmen, they're going straight into our program. And so we already have that in there, and then we're going to start looking at how we can build some cohorts at the junior high for when the middle school opens. So it connects to our career exploration pathways that students will start in 6th grade. Questions?
Directors? I have a comment about it. So I did a deep dive into this online last year when I learned we were doing it. And something I've noticed over the years of being part of the district is we get a program we get excited about, and you're given the outline to it. And it all depends on the implementation of it. And what I'm seeing, I just can't believe how much you've made this, you've threaded it in to our district. And I look at the speakers, and I just, I'm just really proud of what we have on the team and what you're providing. But again, it's the fact that you've found a way to make it absolutely personal to this district. That's what makes a difference. And you really did. It's very clear to me that you've done that. I want to see more Southeast kids at junior high. I wonder why they're not volunteering to be teachers. Anyway, so just thank you. I can tell that you've really made this part of a meaningful system for the district, and it is going to make a difference. It's already making a difference.
Director Finch?
Yeah, this is incredibly robust, and I really love how the whole team has come together to pitch in. It's so vital to show that leadership, and so thank you for everything you're doing.
This is just a program that's near and dear to my heart and Jason's. And I just want to say, like, you guys have done such a great job implementing it. And I'm looking forward to sharing this presentation with him because I know he's going to feel the same way. Thank you, Carmen.
I certainly want to support what the other directors have said so far, Carmen, and Matt, and the other staff too. This is a remarkable implementation of an idea that has a lot of merit and substance to it. So we very much appreciate the effort and brilliance that you have poured into this. I hope we can maintain it. I'm just amazed that high school students at their still young age will commit themselves to undertaking one of the noblest careers that anyone could consider when they're young, and the fact that you're supporting them in their efforts, it really means that you're doing something very worthwhile, Carmen. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just chime in. You know, a lot of times we don't promote ourselves very well or our career, and I think this is an example of how you do that in a very robust way. You know, and especially as we can bring the colleges in, you know, and really make those connections. I mean, it's no secret that we've got a teacher shortage nationally, and this is just a great way and a great opportunity to really explain. And it's not just going to get folks into the profession, but they'll be so much better prepared than most folks who go through teacher ed programs. So kudos, and yeah, we'll keep it up, and I'm sure we'll keep supporting it and see where it goes.
So ditto what everybody else said, Director Guenigali. But I'm just super glad that you're back working with kids as well. Little known fact, Director Guenigali taught all 3 of my girls Spanish. So anyway, I'm just glad that you're leading this. You're absolutely the person to be leading this charge. So thank you.
Yes, so also I want to give you my thanks and say maybe if I had a program like this in my high school, I would have actually become a teacher. Some of you probably are saying, thank God she didn't, but I'm just saying, what if? So thank you for your passion. It's clearly outlined here. I also want to say thank you to the foundation for the donation. Without it, this probably would not have been as robust as we're seeing. So I'm excited to see all that unfolds throughout the year. I did have one question. Did any of our previous seniors or students that participated last year, did any of them write a book?
No, so that's the goal to get
Okay.
students to jump on that this year,
Yeah.
but they all stayed.
Okay.
So since we were there from last year and then from this.
Well, if any do write a book, please do let us know because I know I will definitely purchase one. So thank you.
Thank you.
And it's never too late, President Malone.
It's too late. It's too late. That's gone. Next up. Next up is our first presentation of our quarterly financial report, and is that through CFO Kurth, or are we going to start with Superintendent Degner?
Thank you, everyone. For this one, I'm going to direct your attention to page 10, which is probably where it would go naturally. This is the page that shows our unspent balance. And as we've been talking about with our budget reduction conversations, really the goal is to build up that unspent balance. And as you can see, as we close out the year here, we're on a trajectory to do that in a fairly consistent way. So we anticipate that growing here over the next 4 years to around $14–15 million. So we have healthy growth projected there. I do want to highlight a couple of factors that I'm paying really close attention to at the moment, and that I think will be critical for us to get some more information about, especially as we get into October. And that's related to the numbers at the very top of each of the columns. So the number for fiscal year 24 ending 30th of June 2024, that number 44.92 represents our certified enrollment growth from last school year. So if you recall, all of our funding is based upon previous year enrollment. So that 44.92 was our enrollment growth last year. For this school year, we're projecting enrollment growth of 75 students this school year and next school year. And so as we start the school year off, we're already looking at enrollment numbers. As we get closer to that certified enrollment count date in October, we'll have a much better idea of whether that 75 is accurate, whether that needs to be adjusted up or down. And certainly the impact of the state's ESA, Educational Savings Account program, is one that we're looking at very closely as it relates to that enrollment number, what that does to our budget overall. And then also looking at the impact of, again, kind of the uncertainty following the pandemic. So as we come out of the pandemic, we start to hopefully see more stable enrollment. As we drop dramatically in rows, we should have a better idea of what that's going to look like going forward. But we're projecting what I think is a pretty conservative 75 student growth, which would impact us then in fiscal year 25. So as we move forward again, these numbers may need to be adjusted to take that into account. The other factor that I'd highlight is the row right below that, the percentage growth, that supplemental state aid growth. And right now we're projecting 1.5, the 3% for fiscal year 24 is set, that's established. The 1.5% we project beyond that. Again, there's a decent amount of uncertainty there, certainly depending upon what the legislature decides to do, depending on where state revenues are over the coming years. So another factor that we really need to monitor closely as it relates to making sure that that unspent balance number continues to grow to the point where we're between that 5 and 10% where we want to be. But with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Directors, do you have any questions?
President Malone, I'd just like to voice my continuing objection to unspent balances. That I understand the prudence in having some unspent balance, but to me that means it's money that's being used for nothing. So just would like to have that in the record.
I have a quick question. One of the things that our district does really well is in the transportation. We're really bright green there. So I was just curious with the new contract with the bus drivers with our transportation company, if you anticipate that affecting that number in the future.
Yeah, it's a good question. It won't have an impact on us for this current fiscal year. As we move forward, it remains to be seen what the impact will be on us and where we need to go in terms of that contract.
Jane,
another question I had.
Director Finch.
Oh, sorry. Go
I
ahead.
just added that
Yep.
we're in a multi-year contract with the transportation organization, and so our rates are locked in not only this year, for the next couple of years, kind of what Adam is referring to.
Oh, is that right? Okay,
Yeah.
for the next couple of years. I didn't know if it was more than one.
It
Okay.
is, and as a provided service, we have an opportunity to do a number of extensions through our current contract, but because it's at the cost it is, it's also something that we have to bid out every so many years, and so we will be required to go back to the market at some point and to rebid our transportation services. And of course, even though it's been reported in the media a little bit differently, we did not negotiate that. Those are not our employees. They're employees of a separate organization. And so that's a little bit different than how we negotiate with our other groups, obviously, in the spring. But it's something that we've looked at. It's something that we saw that we know we do need to be conscious of, but also understanding it is a procured service. And so that doesn't have an immediate impact on the contract we already have in place.
Thanks, Chase. Just one other question. I noticed our net open enrollment has been improving over the last several years, and I didn't know if anybody had any comments on the reasons for that.
I think our biggest factor is Liberty High School, if we're being honest. That was really when we opened Liberty, is when we saw that number start to change. I think there's probably multiple contributing factors about why a family stays, so I wouldn't want to isolate to any one event. But when we were doing some of those open enrollment surveys and then timing that with the opening of Liberty High School, that did seem to be a big change for us at the advent of that.
Thanks. I have a question about if you would explain to us why we have the unspent balance, just in response to Director Eastham, if Superintendent Degner would just talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So our unspent balance helps us deal with unforeseen budget consequences. If we were to receive an across-the-board cut, or when we look at long-term financial planning, Adam talked to you about the factors that we'll pay attention. We make assumptions in our budget planning. That's the best we can do with the budget because it is based on enrollment. And so what if we lose 75 students this year instead of gain 75? That's obviously going to change our bottom number. And if you see the previous year when we were at a 0.1% unspent balance, we would have had to make cuts in midstream at that point in time without any kind of a savings to rely on. So the enrollment number significantly impacts that, and then as well as the SSA. And those are variables for us as we approach every year. So it's important for the district that we have some set aside. I definitely respect Director Eastham's point that we want as many of those dollars going close to the students as possible, but we also need to have some responsible number there to keep in play for when unforeseen assumptions either don't come to fruition or we get a changing circumstance in the middle of a legislative session, which we've seen, where across the board cut has happened, or we get a 0%, which throws all of our factoring out of the window. And so, and that's what the school budget review committee would expect from us, to keep that number there. I do think there is a challenge in certain parts of the state where those unspent balances do get too high. And that's something you guys have probably heard at the school board convention and in some of that public school conversation, that there is a tipping point where you can have too much and you're not getting it close to the kids. I believe for us that between that 5 and 10% is reasonable. Yeah, we know the microphones are struggling. They were last time too, sorry.
Are there any additional questions or comments from directors? Hearing none, we will move on to our next presentation, the High Reliability Schools Up.
I'm just going to say one thing while Chase is getting us going. This is one of the opportunities we're most excited about as we continue to talk about starting school tomorrow, as we continue our high reliability schools work that we implemented last year with the focus on level 1. You'll hear the team talk about level 1 and then some of our work, of course, into levels 2 and 3. But for us, when we really talk about system alignment and kind of you're going to hear the words guaranteed viable curriculum tonight, but I always think that word guaranteed and viable goes across our system in a lot of ways. What are those guarantees that we should be making to our community about that student experience? And so the team will get to share some exciting updates with you and what we have planned ahead for this year.
So good evening. After you don't get to use the microphone. And that took my part of the presentation. No. Lucas and Eliza and I are going to do this jointly this evening. And I would echo what Matt said. We are really excited about the work we've done around HRS. And it's hard to believe that we are 18 months into this work. It doesn't seem like it, but we did almost a spring of planning before we implemented last year. And we're very pleased at where we are here as we enter this next year. And there's just an overview. That is kind of our elevator speech, what we can share with the community. It's very concise about what HRS means to us. And you see those highlighted words: equitable outcomes for all students, a common language, and that shared responsibility and autonomy. Matt mentioned the guaranteed and viable curriculum, and it's really those levels 1, 2, and 3 that we're focused on as a district. currently and is into the future. And looking at our timeline, it's not a race. And as Director Pilcher Hayek said earlier about a different program, it's not just about providing a framework or throwing out there something that's shiny and new to our community and then kind of grabbing on the next great thing that comes along. No, we really think this is, or believe, this is the vehicle to improve education in our district. And when you're talking about deep second order, second level change, you have to commit and you have to see that through. And our timeline's going to allow us to do that. Last year, as we kicked things off, focused on level 1 and looking at those environments, that supportive and collaborative culture in our buildings. We shared a lot with our principals, shared a lot with our staff, gave them those building blocks, talked a lot about leading indicators and lagging indicators, did some surveys to see where we were. And this year, as you're going to hear Eliza talk a little bit about, it's about that certification process and truly now living in level 1. Again, it's not about racing forward, it's about establishing these foundations for the work that's ahead, and we're in that year. And that's really what we've communicated to our principals. You can hear Lucas and Eliza both talk about levels 2 and levels 3 and the work we're doing with principals in IDS. But for us, at the end of this year, a win is all of our buildings certified at level 1. And so it's really trying to do that work with all of our employees while our leaders still focus on taking those next steps. And we think this timeline has served us well so far, and we're committed to continuing on that path. And just really excited about where we're headed. Our kickoff this year was by a great woman named Tina Bugren, who dipped our toes into that level 2. And so looking forward to what Lucas has to share with you about that. And this year we're also going to put some set points where we come back to you throughout the year for our updates, so you can continue to monitor and see the progress and the great work that is going on in our schools. With that, I'm going to turn it over to, and I also drew apparently the short straw to get to stand up here and promote the slides. Eliza and Lucas are going to stay seated at the table.
Thank you, Chase. All right, so the next slide that you have in front of you just outlines what this next year is going to look like. The timeline that we just showed on the previous slide shows the work within the next 6 years, but we wanted to really focus on this coming year. And so this is kind of what we've been calling our roadmap for the year. And you can see the 3 different levels, since we are going to be doing some work simultaneously behind the scenes. You can see the people responsible in the audience in the columns on the right-hand side of each of the levels. And so this year in level 1, we are continuing with our process around high-quality professional learning communities. You're going to see a lot of words on here that maybe don't make a ton of sense without context, but we're really focusing on developing that common language and consistency PK-12 around our professional learning communities, making sure that we're answering these 6 questions about what we want students to be able to know and be able to do. How are we going to know if they know it? What are we going to do if they not understand it? And what are we going to do if they already know the skills? And then how are we building capacity as educators to continue to grow and learn and provide the best education for our students? And so, can you guys hear me okay? I don't mumble through this. Thank you. And so that level 1 is really continued to be focused around safe, supportive, and collaborative schools. And so as Superintendent Ramey talked about, that certification piece is something that we're going to spend a lot of time working on. And we are actually going to go more in depth on that certification process with you sometime coming up in an ed committee, where we can get into that Moodle and probably have some school teams come and show you what they've been doing so far. In level 2, this year, we are spending time with an instructional framework called the New Art and Science of Teaching. And we were really excited to have Dr. Bogren with us for 2 days. Last week, came and spoke with our entire teaching staff, as well as spent a more in-depth day with our principals, our instructional coaches, and one teacher leader at each building to really start to learn about that framework. so we're excited within those three levels that there are people within our organization that are really digging deep and gaining that knowledge to be able to lead our staff through that over the course of the next 6 years. So at the building level, they're going to be really digging into level 1. Kind of at our instructional leadership level, we're learning more about level 2, getting into those instructional strategies. And then level 3 with our curriculum team, the team that Carmen has, is digging into those proficiency scales, our assessments, and ensuring that the guaranteed viable curriculum is something that's happening in all 29 of our attendance centers.
The one thing I'd add is we switch, and Marzano talks a lot about the question about why are the levels the way they are, and we've had this conversation come to us from staff, and it's very intentional. And you think about, oh, you need a guaranteed viable curriculum right off the bat. Well, what the research shows us, right, is the teacher, the quality teacher, is the most important concept in a child's learning, and it doesn't matter how great the curriculum is. If you don't have teachers that can deliver it, that curriculum is going to fall flat. And so that's one of the things we continue to talk about, is we really need to work on what makes our teachers excellent and what are those qualities they bring to the classroom. Then we're going to overlay that curriculum on top of it. I hope I did not steal the next one.
Yes, you have.
Perfect, good. That's what I'm here for.
So I'm going to follow the lead by not using the microphone, but kind of continuing on with what Chase and Eliza both alluded to. Our goal, which is ambitious, but I think it's realistic for it to expect that all of our buildings by the end of this school year, so by the end of July of '24, is that all of our buildings will be level 1 certified. And I wanted to highlight those words in red there: prove and improve. Prove and improve. That does not mean perfection. So when we take a look at the 8 leading indicators in level 1, when a building certifies by the end of next year, that doesn't mean that everything that's going on in that building is perfect, that there are no issues or problems that are occurring with the student, staff, and families. But what that does mean by certifying within the level 1 is that you are proving what you're doing is working, and if it's not working through data or different multiple data sets, what are you doing then to improve on it? Living in a past life who worked with a school that did the HRS level 1 certification, what that really does is you really celebrate what you're doing, because our buildings did a lot of amazing things last year centered around a common language. And what they gave our building leadership the ability to do, and I expect the same for our buildings, is holy cow, look at everything we accomplished last year. Where are some growth areas that we have, and where are some areas of strength for us to celebrate? So really what that certification process is intended to be is that ability to communicate what you're doing and the constant ability to prove and improve. And what Eliza and I's goal this year will be, working with the principals, is to ensure that the support is needed and provided to our principals as they move through that certification process. We will be working with a couple different consultants through Marzano, who will work through each building's certification process. So leaders have questions as they start to submit items. They will be able to ask those questions and then get feedback from those consultants. Again, we're excited about the fact that
over 800 of our teachers attend half-day introduction with Dr. Bogren at Liberty. This year we had listened to feedback from previous professional development sessions that we'd offered, and our teachers wanted to get more specific to their grade level. And so in the morning, our secondary teachers came to Liberty. In the afternoon, our elementary teachers came. And then the opposite time with that, within level 1, are those high-quality professional learning communities. So Lucas and I, along with our TLC leads, designed and crafted a professional learning around PLCs that every building principal and IES pair then gave to their teachers, and then allowed them to be able to work in setting their norms for the year, thinking about the different standards that were coming up and how they would assess that to really build that common language and to really make sure that we're focused on those priority standards. I'm going to kind of steal Lucas's thunder or just stop it. I'm going to go ahead and he's worked really, really hard to get our secondary teachers to start collaborating in content areas across buildings. And so to highlight that, he now has every secondary teacher as a part of a PLC across buildings in our district. And that's something that we haven't done before. And at the elementary, we have every singleton a part of a grade level PLC across buildings. And so we've got these after school PLCs through the work of Radiant or negotiated agreement that's allowing for us to be able to have these grade level teachers that have never, content level teachers, never been able to collaborate with someone else who teaches that grade level or that content level to be able to PLC. And so they were able to start to do some of that work on the other part of our day. I don't need to go into explaining this. This just talks about what we had said with those 3 categories. The 10 design areas are those ones that are bolded, and then the 43 elements within that.
And just to highlight what Eliza had mentioned with our PLC learning, one of the comments that I heard from one of our TLC leads and from a couple teachers is, holy cow, this is the first time in a long time that we can remember that every teacher in the district, no matter when or what level they teach at or the building that they're in, everybody receives the same learning. And again, we work together to design that professional learning, but also give them the autonomy within the building itself to customize and to make it unique for their own building, so they're not just reading verbatim from what the 2 of us create. So we were excited about that opportunity to provide that to our staff. So that's the staff members either received it on that optional TQ day on the 16th, but we also told staff we know that there will not be some teachers there. So you need to make sure that when they do return, 100% of your staff receive the same instruction over what makes a professional learning community effective within their building. And they either did that on the 17th or they did that the following day on the 18th. Again, just to highlight a couple of the things that are often barriers is I don't have somebody to meet with and I don't have time to meet. And we worked extremely hard last spring, especially at the secondary level, and Eliza highlighted with the Singleton Elementary, making sure that that's not an excuse anymore. So we eliminated some of those barriers that are often the first things that come to teachers' minds, like, I can't meet because of this, or this. We've taken those barriers away, now let's meet. So what you're gonna see here in just a little bit is what we worked on last spring with our fall, with our elementary administrators and IDS, as well as our secondary administrators and IDS. And while there's a little bit of differences and nuances between the 2, it really does center around the 5 anchor statements that you see up here. And this is from the book Amplify Your Impact. Again, what makes a meaningful collaborative team? And Carmen's going to highlight in just a little bit the importance of proficiency scales and standards so people have a target of what they're supposed to do. And then how, if you don't meet that target, what's that feedback going to look like if you need to improve? And really what this is a proficiency scale for our professional learning communities. So what we're going to ask every PLC and every collaborative team within our district this year at 3 different times, identify and self-rank where your team is at. And what we're going to then do is take that learning back to our team as we start to plan that instruction for our administrators, that professional development for our administrators. What do we identify as trends with all of our teams across our district, and how are we going to best support and meet the needs that exist within our buildings? So to establish our IDS as well as our administrators, how are you going to provide clarity to your teams as well as meaningful feedback? What is the feedback that they need, and what is it going to be meaningful for them? So really what you see here are those 5 anchor statements that are the same both elementary and secondary. But again, what this does is create a target for all of our teams.
one column we completed was the one that says description of standard, and that's where they were able to put in if it was a specific unit, they were able to identify the priority standards for that specific unit and add this template to work with. So this year, we're working in teacher cohorts, elementary through secondary, and the teacher cohorts will then continue building out this template and will complete all of the columns except for the common summative assessments. We're gonna put a hold on that for next year, and that's what we're gonna work on for the next school year. But for every priority standard that has been identified in that first column, we'll then determine what is example of proficiency or rigor for that specific standard, which will be our baseline as we start building our proficiency skills, so we can provide effective feedback for our students. What are some of the prerequisite skills that students should have? So that will also include some of our supporting standards of what should they know before they come in. That will also help with the work we'll do with proficiency skills. This could be that we're going to use a 4-point scale. So the way we have it broken down is that rigor. An example of it would be that 3 on our proficiency, which defines this is proficient. And then our prerequisite skills could fall onto that 1 or 2 as we're building students up. When is it taught? That will help with when we define our common scope and sequence, know exactly when that priority standard is going to be taught within the school year. The common assessments part we're holding off for now, but then the extension standard will be, as we circle through that PLC question, that number 4, what do we do with students already know it? So how can we build some extension learning with the students in that number 4? So that cohort team will be working with our ELP, our ELL coordinators and some teachers. Special ed will be supporting the network too. And so teachers will be working together in teams. There'll be one day that will be fully just based on learning how to effectively use proficiency skills, how to create proficiency skills. So teachers will understand exactly how those skills will be used to provide effective feedback for students throughout the year, but then also for students to learn how to assess their own learning. And then those will be the pieces that we work on this year.
So before we open to questions, just kind of wrap it up. One of the slides we don't have in here that we highlighted a couple of times last year was the one that the superintendent liked to show of first of like all the arrows going in like 1,000 different directions, right? And they're all now going in one direction. A lot of things you heard the team talk about are things that we've always done. We're always looking to improve the quality of the teachers. We're always looking to make sure that the experiences our students are getting across classrooms are similar. We're always looking to make sure our teams are collaborating. We were just doing it in a lot of different pathways. And HRS has allowed us to bring that all together, to take all those things that are pointing different directions and really point them in a singular focus, which I think is one of the beauties of this work. And I appreciate Carmen mentioning some of the other departments. We hadn't even gotten into a lot of the things that other work that's going on to support this. And so we remain really excited about bringing back more of the steps on our journey. And a huge shout out to Brady and the Teachers Association. They've been a large part of all the work that we do, and we understand that initiatives don't get off the ground if you don't have the buy-in from the folks you're actually asking to implement them. And Brady's been a great lead, a great partner in doing that to get that buy-in from our teachers about this is the right work at the right time. That, unless you want to add anything.
Yeah, if you guys remember the book I gave you when we started this conversation, right? We talked about highly reliable organizations are ones that cannot tolerate failure, right? We can't tolerate failure. Our most important resources are kids, right? And so I would say that's a fair critique of public education, right? For a long time, is there's probably been too many areas of failure. And I don't think it's for lack of good intent or for lack of trying. When we talk about the arrows picture, everybody's trying. The problem is, and I wish I had thought about it before Marzano, is how to put all of this together, right? And how to do it, and how to create the system in education for education to be a highly reliable environment, because we have to be, right? That's the guarantee we have to make. That's the assurance we have to make. That is where we have to make sure that we are successful for our kids. And so all of these things, I know you can start to have your eyes glaze over as we get excited to talk about PLCs and priority standards and common assessments. But all that stuff's good stuff for educators, right? There's nobody arguing about most of the things we're asking them to do on that list. I think the frustration has been about how, when, what am I supposed to do first? What standards are we using? What's more important than another one? We didn't have a way to approach it. And so I've always kind of thought about it's like we actually have a game plan now of how to attack this on the instructional side. And so that's the beauty in it. And I think this will be one of the most powerful things, or this is the most powerful thing we can do for our kids, because there's not an element of we're doing curriculum instruction wise or from a teaching practice perspective that we're not touching in this framework. So we're super excited about it. As you can tell, I think we have a great team leading the work, and it wouldn't happen without that. You can have the best game plan you want if you can't execute it, right? And they're making it happen with the execution. So big kudos to them. But definitely happy to answer your questions. But this will be one I know we'll be excited about to talk about anytime it comes back.
Directors, the floor is open if you have any questions, comments. Director Eastham?
Thank you, President Malone. Matt and Carmen, Chase, the rest of the team, Lucas and Eliza, thank you. Sorry. Sorry. You're describing great work, and I understand that. I have a lot of confidence, frankly, that over time, this will change what students are experiencing in the district and what teachers are experiencing in the district. In the meantime, I'm a member of a group of mostly black leaders in the community. And when we talk about education a lot, they talk about education a lot, they talk about this district a lot. And one of the constant common stories that I've heard is of black students reaching 12th grade and not being proficient in reading mainly, or not being able to read. So can you just let us know, or let me know, what I can say to those folks now that will indicate that we are on a path to change that result in the future? I can pull things out of what this description entails, but I'm not sure that would be, I shouldn't be doing that. I don't have the background to do that. So can you tell me what you would say to that group about students in the future will not be where those students in the present and past have been?
Well, I'm just going to jump in, and
Oh,
then
sorry.
you guys can compliment if you want to there. But I don't want to keep using sports analogies, but one thing I think about is like we could keep coming in and sharing a new offense with you about something that we're going to say is going to be this new bright thing that's going to change the outcome for our kids, or a new reading program, or those. And we're going to continue to look for those good things for our kids. But the bottom line is there's some foundational core practices that we haven't been very good at. We haven't been very good at just being able to block consistently, knowing when to block, when to do some of those small tasks. And if we don't get those things right, and we can't do that consistently across, and we can't talk to each other about a teacher that's having outstanding success being able to teach second grade reading to our black male students, if we can't collaborate on that, we don't have a chance of doing that across 29, 30 attendance centers, right? And so I think it's simplifying it to say it's going back to basics, but it also isn't grasping at the shiny straw. It is saying here's the things we know work in education. When you look at John Hattie's work about visible learning, the highest leverage practices you can use, that's all embedded in those highly effective teaching practices, right? And so it's not grasping at something that would be easy and we could sell our community on that this is going to be the one fix. It's doing, I think, the hard long-term work that is going to get to that. So I think the way you could assure them is that we're committed to the right teaching and learning practices here. And are we going to keep getting better at it? Yes. But are those results always going to quickly follow? You might not see that tomorrow, right? You might not see that quickly. But what we are sure of is that we've improved. We have a system commitment to do the right thing for our kids and to do the right thing for our staff.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt.
One thing I'd say, that you used some words that resonated with me more. So high reliability schools, I get stuck on words. I think people have seen that. It didn't resonate with me what it meant, but you just referred to it as highly reliable environments. And that's what we're creating district-wide. That's what we want to say to all the people. Remember, we've had groups with the bond, and we talked about every student, any school. Every kid should have the same expectations, and this probably goes to what you're saying too. And if you can rely on the environment of every building, that's the goal, and that's what all this cross-district work is going to do. The more collaboration we have, the better. I also just want to say, like, you're very honest about where we are and where we're going. This chair keeps going up. And I want to make sure we're clear on it. We're really good. Our teachers are really good. It's just they're really good independently. And that's the nature of teaching historically. Like you go in, you're teaching your class. You might even be teaching a one-room schoolhouse. So that's normal. You can still be really good and be an island, but you're going to be a lot better if you're not an island. And that's what HRS is offering us. So we're real good. We're just going to be better because we're collaborating and we're having all of these cohorts and all of the PLC work that you're describing. That's why we're going to be even better.
Thank you for kind of clarifying that, because I do think I didn't finish that point very well. We have good things in isolation, right? But we have to be a unit. Like, that's the highly reliable organization, right? Or the highly reliable environment. That's the only way you can do that. It's kind of like you guys heard me say before, you won't find a great building without a great principal, right? Because that principal is the one that's going to make it a great unit, right? And you're, the same thing in a classroom, right? We know you have to have a great teacher, but we have to have great teachers in every classroom, right? We have to be a consistent unit, and we have really good teachers, we have really good pockets. That has to just be a repetitive experience over and over and over. Back to that, failure is not an option, for us in this system. So thanks for framing it, because I don't think we're trying to say that we're not doing good things. It's about how do we do good things consistently every single day and replicate that work.
The collaboration is the key, and that's a uniquely human ability. That's why humans are able to survive in this world above, animals that are much stronger than us, right? Is our ability to collaborate. It's really higher level thinking and more evolved thinking. The people at the bottom are competing. The people at the top are collaborating. And that's why it's so important. And that's what's going to pull us through.
And Maka, you made the point. I'm also going to use my teacher voice because I got to have it tomorrow. So that teaching is one of the few professions that you are in total isolation.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by kids, you're surrounded by your colleagues, but you are traditionally just doing this thing in isolation with no real way to measure what's happening, right? All of the reforms, all of the things that have happened in education, all of the money that has been spent for 50 years hasn't moved the needle on many things that we're trying to work on, whether that's equity and testing. So finally, we get to the point, and it is so we can collaborate, because we have to speak the same language. We have to have a way to measure it and a way to support one another. And thank you, Brady, because it is the teacher buy-in. Because so much PD has been so bad for so long, or maybe if it's been good, that's been good in pockets. When I started, it wasn't our initiative, it came from above, but there was a 3-year reading protocol that every single teacher in this district had to go through. That was going to be our entire PD for 3 years. I was in the group 2, Gamma group, and we had 4 different instructors in a year who all had different pedagogies and all had different ideas and all had different skills. It wasn't differentiated at all. So people who have kids who aren't reading traditionally, they're going nonverbal kids, are in the same thing with AP instructors taking the same class with different instructors, and in year 2, they're like, oh, we're done. We're not doing that anymore. And so when you have that experience as a teacher, why would you believe anything anyone brings you? Like, well, here, and so the traditional thing is, here we go again. Just wait, this will pass. Don't give it too much attention. And we went through, you're talking about huge federal initiatives. No Child Left Behind. Anyone in education knew that was going to be a 10-year waste of time. And it was going to be punitive and take money away, so nobody bought in. And it wasn't based in anything but politics. It wasn't couched in anything real. And so HRS is the promise that we're going to keep on this. And we're going to measure it along the way, so we all know the why. We're good at the why. That's our job. Here's why we do it. This is the how. And it's step by step, and it's going to be incremental, and we're going to measure ourselves along the way and ask ourselves a question. What are we learning? If we're not learning it, why not? And if we've already done it, we're going to move on to the next thing. And we're doing that in a systemic way. So I love not just HRS, but when you hear you all like seriously nerding out on this, it's like, oh yeah, we're all on the same page. We're digging in because it is, I'm sure, like I can hear how you guys would want to keep going. and most people are going to be like, we're way in the weeds here. But to know that you understand it and that you're going to show us where you're going with it is very reassuring as a board member. You know, I think last year, and Amy was presenting, so that's what stuck in my head. It's like, oh, here's the first time I said, here's where we're going to get this year, and here's where we're going to keep going in the next 5 or 6 years. I've never heard that before. It's always, what's the shiny new thing we're going to do this year? And then the next year comes along, and what's the shiny new thing we're going to do this? And it just repeats. And so finally, we're at a place where we're going to understand how these high reliability systems work and apply it to the most important system we have, which is our kids. So thank you. I know I get going on this. I'm not as weedy in the weeds as it, but I really appreciate that you guys are. So thank you for all of your work.
Well, and then just to build on that briefly, that I may have heard some of that, oh, this is the new bright new shiny thing at home when we first started talking about HRS 2 years ago. And I'll tell you, my husband attended the August 17th day, and he came back, I've shared this with some of the team, and said it was the best professional development day he's ever attended in his 10 plus years with the district. And it's just one opinion of the 800, but it's one I sometimes listen to. But I do think that the teachers themselves are we're starting to feel a little bit of a change, that it's not going to go away, that it's here to stay, and that it's worth the time investing into getting it right, which I think is really exciting, because that means all of your guys' hard work is going to come to fruition, and we're going to get it done, which is great.
I agree with everything that's said. One point I want to make, I think, is the buy-in that we see from our teachers and our staff is partly due to the excitement that you all have as an administrative team. So it was clear from the presentation, and yes, I could tell you could go on for another 40 minutes if I allowed it, but I'm looking forward to hearing more, especially with the regular updates that Deputy Superintendent Ramey mentioned. So keep up the great work. Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to our action items. First up is the board resolution on recent legislation, my tongue-tied. Are there any comments or further discussion on this item?
I'm just going to comment, for the record, I am not attempting to annihilate civilization with this resolution or a vote in support of it.
With that, I would entertain a... Oh, go ahead.
Do you want to have discussion before the motion or afterwards?
You can.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd really like to express my gratitude to everyone who's worked on this, to JP, Lisa, Maka especially. I think and others of us too. I do want to say that the current legislation does discriminate against LGBTQ students. Clearly it does. It singles out students who wish to express their gender preference and basically prevents them, or tries to prevent them from doing that. I don't know what else discrimination is. So, and I think my personal goal here has always been to try to express to the students in the district that we are going to support all of them. It's been Matt's continuous message, his staff's continuous message, and I think our continuous message as a board. And I'm looking forward to us to continuing that and amplifying it. With that in mind, I thought of something that I'd like to propose. The use of pronouns is something that seems to totally confound legislators, but it's important to many students, very important to many students. And the use of pronouns is something I think we can support. The legislature is trying to enforce their discrimination by going after staff in the district that are licensed and threatening to remove their license. I actually don't have a license. I'm simply an elected person, so I can do a lot of things that other people may not be possible for them to do. So I'm inclined to actually ask the superintendent or the board secretary if I could take my nameplate here and have it redone so that it reads Charles Eastham, parentheses, he, him, his, commas, and close parentheses. And I know that's a cost I'm asking about, and
Please do not shout out. Thank you.
I know it's a cost, and this may not be the time to actually make this kind of request, but that's something I would like to happen. Okay. The other thing I'd like to happen is that in the district's webpage, board members are introduced, and our name is given, and then along a list of things that we want to say. So I would like to request that the district behind my name also include my preferred pronouns, he, him, and his. If other board members want to join in and that, to do that, that would be fine, but I certainly would not going to propose that as a single board member. But anyway, to me, that's something that I can do that I think would help some students to understand that we are on their side and we are going to oppose what other people in this state are trying to do to them.
And thank you, Director Eastham. Those suggestions, I think we can find a place to put them on a future agenda, either here at one of our regular meetings or an education committee meeting, what fits best. Since tonight is primarily our action item, I don't want to introduce a new item that the public wasn't made aware of that we were going to discuss tonight.
Yeah, it's a good point.
President Malone, do you want us to wait till we move to discuss it any further, or what's your goal?
We usually do, I call for discussion first, then we make for a motion, and then some people have additional comments they want to make, so I open up the opportunity for further discussion.
All I would say is, you know, there's always a learning curve, and including for, I'm sure, people in the room, about how we learn about children and human development and humanity. And at first, some of these things can be really difficult to understand, and then we learn about it, and I think the best thing we do is experience it through our own children and through the children they go to school with and the neighbors they play with. And I think the reason the board wants to do a resolution like this is because it is a reaction to legislation. It makes it clear in the resolution that that's its purpose. Because something happened, so we are responding to it. And the thing that happened is harmful to children. So whether or not a person thinks it should be harmful to children, it is harmful to children and their families. And, you know, if you haven't experienced it with your own children or a niece or nephew or a friend's kids, then maybe it's just you're not quite there yet and you haven't seen it. But we all know it's harm, it's real. And the last thing that a school board wants is to have children suffer. Obviously, we don't want that per se, but we also don't want children to suffer because it would impact their learning. So in any way that any kind of legislation might interfere with a student's learning, we as a board have a responsibility to react to it. And the way a board can react to it is through a resolution. And we may be doing this today in reaction to LGBTQ legislation. It's not because those are that's the only demographic that we care about. It's just that's the demographic that is being targeted by certain nuanced legislation. But we're going to be here to respond to any kind of legislation that might interfere with a student in our district feeling safe and being able to learn.
Thank you. With that, I would entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the board resolution on recent legislation.
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
You know, I do want to say one thing quickly. and not just the snarky comment I made. That fundamentally, I think what we're dealing with is the difference between someone's belief about what I should experience and my own actual experience. That some people believe certain people shouldn't be having experiences. They don't know how to wrap their head around it, and so they can't accept that anyone is having the experience. And as someone who's experienced this at numerous times, certainly when I was on the inpatient at the hospital, what I've seen is the damage it does to someone when you don't validate their experience, to the point that people will take their own life because they no longer can trust what they're experiencing. And so that would be my guess as to why many transgender youth attempt suicide at higher rates than other folks, because their experience isn't validated. And one way I know that is because I've seen what happens when you do validate someone's experience with something as simple as a pronoun. And I've seen kids get that aha and just get that, like, you believe me. And it just changes the framework. And so if you've never experienced that, you don't know what you're talking about. You just don't. You believe things should be a way, and they're not. They're actually not in reality. So I would hope that some folks would have more experiences so they would know what they're talking about instead of just hyperbolizing to us all of the time with their very strong beliefs that aren't based in experienced reality. So please do ourselves a favor and have some lived experience. Get to know some kids who are going through something that you can't possibly believe. And especially kids who attempt suicide. Try to empathize a little and get there instead of just scolding all of the time.
With that, are there any further discussion? Hearing none, Board Secretary Coven ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Next up is our action item. Director Finch, who chairs our P&G committee, went over that earlier during the meeting with some more information provided by Superintendent Degner. I would open it up for any additional questions, comments, or discussion.
I'd just like it to be known that even though a lot of us disagree with some of these, we're following the law.
Thank you, Director Clausen. Hearing no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the policy primers.
Second.
Are there any further discussion? Hearing none, Board Secretary Coven ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
And that takes us to our agenda setting. As a reminder, there is a closed session next Tuesday, and we will start at 5 p.m. Mark that on your calendars, since that's not a typical meeting day for us. And then we have our regularly scheduled board meeting on September 12th with our standard items, and looking at the parking lot items, Superintendent Degner, it looks like you had pinpointed the truancy attendance.
Yeah, most likely. I'm still waiting to get straight confirmation from the Johnson County Attorney, but we're planning on having them here the evening of the 12th to talk about the change in attendance and truancy practice here in the county. So that would be one that we would slot for that September 12th meeting. We also have a couple other things like you talked about in the parking lot.
Yeah.
We can see if we're ready for that Green Ribbon Schools presentation. We will do math in the Ed Committee that third week in September, which is the 19th. And then I'll need to double check a couple things about if we would be due for a middle school update. I know that was a recurring item for us as well. So, and I'm sure we'll have a couple other items that'll make it to the agenda as well, but those are the ones on the radar for now.
Great.
I have
a simple one, I think, but Kristen Peterson, I was wondering if maybe when we get the new, when we roll over to the new website, even if it's a 5-minute, but I just think it'd be good for the public and the board to know what that's going to look like, because I know that people use that website all the time. I've really enjoyed using it with our Latinos for Education, because the translation button is so easy to use, for example. But I just think it might be nice to highlight it, because I know it's a really big undertaking. So I'm not sure when that would happen, but I'm looking forward to hearing from you about it.
We can definitely add that to the parking lot, and I agree, I would be interested in that as well.
Yeah, I would too.
All right. And with that, I would, oh, go ahead.
Well,
Director
should,
Easton.
what's the thinking on my ability to change the way I'm using and expressing
When we
pronouns?
do further agenda setting with some of the items that Superintendent Degner mentioned, we'll see where that can, on what meeting that can be slotted.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Are there any other items or parking lot items? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Move we adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
With that, have a great first day
Good
tomorrow.
luck, everybody.
Yeah.
Meeting is adjourned.